You are with the big story here. I'm Seher Zama. In the top focus is the Consumer Protection Bill 2019, which has just been passed by the Lok Sabha today. Now, this bill is aimed for the benefit of the consumer, adding several more rights to the consumer. It is aimed to create a national level regulator, which is going to be called the Central Consumer Protection Authority, which is the CCPA. And this is going to be dealing with consumer complaints on a proactive measure. The bill also contains key provisions which deal with product liability, misleading advertisements, and also liability for celebrity endorsements, among others. If this goes ahead to be passed in the Rajya Sabha as well, this becomes a law, and a celebrity endorser could be fined up to 10 lakh rupees, part of a misleading ad campaign. This also brings us to the big question: should celebrities be liable for endorsing a product? That being one of the questions, one of the factors here that have been taken into account in this bill. It's important here to note here that this Consumer Protection Bill was passed in the Lok Sabha in the 16th Lok Sabha as well. In 2008, it was stuck in the Rajya Sabha with the new government coming to power, having reintroduced this and passed the bill today in the Lok Sabha. It still needs to go ahead for further discussion in the Rajya Sabha before it becomes a law. But important questions here that are going to be asked. It takes into account several rights of the consumer as well. It is also taken into account as far as factors of difficulties that are faced by consumers as far as the e-commerce platform, the tele-shopping, multi-level marketing platform here is concerned, and gives several more rights to the consumer. Let's get in a word here from consumer rights activist Mr. Bijon Mishra with us over the phone line. Appreciate you being with us, sir. Are you happy all of what has been listed here in this bill? We're going to be going into whether or not a celebrity should be held liable, but as a consumer, do you feel that this goes beyond what was the earlier act, which was COPRA 1986? It takes into account a lot of changes that have taken place in the market.
It's going to be a big game changer. Let me tell you, this is going to empower the Indian consumer who have been quite voiceless, and huge number of cases of consumers' complaints piling up in the courts will now get redressed because class action litigation is going to be entertained. So it's going to be a real transformation, you see, and we are very happy. It's a victory to the consumers of the country. We thank the parliamentarians for finally passing and enacting this bill, which is absolutely in the interest of the country and the consumer. So we have been wanting to do this for the last 3 years, and finally Modi government too has done it. And we feel quite thrilled about it. It's going to be a great kind of a relief to the consumer, and I'm sure we'll work towards a new India and, of course, the 5 trillion economy which we are looking at to come.
Mr. Bijon Mishra, we're going to be getting into some specifics on what this bill takes into account. One big question also here is celebrity endorsement. Should celebrities be held responsible, liable? Should they be penalized if they've been advertising a product which is substandard or which doesn't essentially offer what the celebrity is talking about in that product? Do you think this should be held directly responsible for a celebrity? Okay.
This new law is going to ensure that all misleading advertisements or people who are endorsing it and taking fat money and not become liable will now become accountable. So a lot of misleading advertisements will go away from the marketplace. You will find that there will be a discipline and ethical practices adopted in terms of messaging of products and services in the country. So it will definitely strengthen in terms of the knowledge or the credible information coming to improve customers' choice or consumer choice out of credible information. So all the endorsers, the celebrities who have been taking fat fees for endorsement will now have to be very careful what they are endorsing about.
That's right. No, not just a question of looking at whether or not they've been taking fat fees for endorsement. That, of course, is their concern. But a quality check, which now becomes a responsibility of a celebrity to be doing quality check themselves, or perhaps having their own team to be doing that quality check before they decide to endorse a product.
Absolutely. And that's what I mentioned, that when you take money to endorse, you be sure that I'm not saying that you should not take money. I'm saying you take money, but be responsible and make sure that you take money for something which is ethical. You endorse something which you yourself use or you yourself endorse because you feel that it is good, not because you are getting the money. And that's why I mentioned about fat fees. What I mentioned is you are entitled to take your professional fee, but you have to be responsible in terms of what you are endorsing. So it is going to bring in ethical practices at the marketplace.
All right. Yes, please stay with us. Let's also get in my colleague, our correspondent Tanima, with further details on what else has been listed here in this bill, which should be largely very empowering for the Indian consumer now.
Right, Seher, let me just take you through some of the powers which are being vested in the Central Consumer Protection Authority. That is, of course, a body which will be set up now if this bill, of course, passes through the Rajya Sabha as well. Now, the CCPA is a national level regulator which will be dealing with matters related to violation of rights of consumers. Specifically, it will have an investigation wing which will be headed by a Director General level officer who will have the powers of search and seizure. Remember, some of the concerns which had been expressed by the consumers at a time when this bill was being formulated was the fact that enforcement as well as legality around actually holding people responsible for, let's say, misleading endorsements, those were missing. That teeth was missing in the existing law. So this bill and especially the CCPA aims to address some of these concerns. Also, a district collector will be empowered to report to the CCPA regularly for some of these concerns which are being brought forth through consumer complaints. So it is not just the national level body which will be set up, which will be working ad hoc, but also district level collectors will also be liaising with the CCPA in order to bring forth some of these in order to make sure that some of these consumer concerns are addressed. And it will also, the CCPA will also have the power to recall goods which are considered to be dangerous, or there are complaints which are coming up which claim that these goods are dangerous, hazardous or unsafe, and there will also be legal proceedings later on that the CCPA can in fact invoke. So several powers in fact invested in this one body alone, which will be set up if this bill actually goes through the Rajya Sabha. So as we were in fact discussing and mentioning that essentially the aim of this bill, as has in fact been given through some of these through some of the specific aspects listed in the bill, are aimed to curb down misleading advertisements, misleading endorsements, and also to tell the public that now there is a law which is there which will make sure that if there are complaints that they have related to goods they are buying, whether on brick and mortar stores, whether through brick and mortar stores or online, now they can actually go to a body to raise some of these complaints.
Right. Right. Tanima, please stay on with us. These are very important details that you've just informed our viewers of exactly what all the bill is going to be taking into account for the consumer. Mr. Bijon Mishra, we've of course already had a very active Consumer Protection Act, COPRA Act 1986. We've had consumer courts as well working there, seeking, as far as consumers seeking redressal directly at the consumer courts is concerned. Why would you help us understand, though, on why this is game changing? One would think there has existed enough here in India to be protecting the consumers' rights. How this further changes things today?
You see, the earlier act always worked on a complaint. Like if you had a defective product, you bought a defective product, or if you are, were party to an unfair trade practice or deficiency in service, then you could go and complain and claim compensation. But it is going to be a game changer. This new act of 2019 is because before you get harmed, you can withdraw the product. You can, complain about certain products which are not good for your health, which are in the marketplace, which needs to be withdrawn, or a defective product. For example, recall of unsafe vehicles or recall of unsafe medicines in the supply chain. Now, you don't have to wait now to become a victim to be able to claim compensation. Like you die and then you claim compensation. That was the earlier law. Now the law says you don't need to die, but if you know that it is harmful, you can start the prosecution. You can start the action to withdraw those products and not become victim. So that's the game changer. Suo moto, this authority has been given an encompassing power. This authority has...
All right. So to take suo moto cognizance here, yes, we're going to be getting in certain brand experts as well to get in their views from the other side, whether or not they feel that this is, could this mean that this is too tilted towards the rights of the consumer? What about brand owners? But it is an important day here for consumers. If there is a provision here to be for the authorities or for the CCPA, which would be set up here as a central authority to also be taking suo moto cognizance here. Mr. Bijon Mishra, we've seen, of course, several brands that have been taken to task for containing harmful chemicals or beyond permissible levels. Are you saying that today this becomes the right of a consumer to not be addressing that through an authority, but to be able to do that independently now?
Yes, in fact, you see, we as consumers or consumer organizations do not have the necessary resources to take up challenges against giants and big brands who are, big industry leaders. So this law will now empower the authority to take cases on behalf of a class of consumers who may be affected for the same cause. Say, for example, home buyers. So there are a number of people who were affected by, not getting their home delivered on time. So we had to fight up to the Supreme Court to get relief. So now we don't need to go to the Supreme Court, but we would be able to through the authority which will come into effect. And the authority can take cognizance of any kind of unfair practice or any kind of violation.
That's right. And initiate legal proceedings then. Yes, please stay with us. Let's also get in a word here from brand expert, Mr. KV Sridhar, with us on the phone line. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Sridhar. Are you happy with this development? Do you think that this not just works towards the right of protecting the consumer, but also making brands aware that there will need to be quality control, there will need to be certain things that should be taken into account if a celebrity is brought on board for endorsing a product as well, and a lot of other things which could be seen as a matter of reform in this area?
Yeah, it's definitely. At the end of the day, consumers should be protected. It should not be cheated. And brands and marketers and manufacturers need to take all the precautions and communicate responsibly. And at the same time, the onus is also on people who are endorsing. I think somewhere, onus lies with almost, all the people in order to protect the consumers. At the end of the day, consumer is a king and you cannot cheat them or hide anything from them, or you can mislead the information. At times, anybody make any claims without any supporting. So you need to have a supporting, authorized way to really communicate that to people. So that is the ultimate ambition, whether it is even the brands and manufacturers are concerned, even they also want to participate and be responsible. So this is good for everybody concerned, consumers and also marketers.
Right. Mr. Sridhar, given the fact that this bill also addresses the e-commerce, it addresses the space of telemarketing, direct selling as well, all of it, particularly telemarketing and e-commerce. To what extent do you think they could be held responsible here if haven't acted in the right of the consumer? Because this has been one area where consumers have been struggling. There is no platform to seek redressal as far as being cheated or giving a faulty product there on the e-commerce space or the telemarketing space is concerned.
There has to be some kind of, the number of complaints which come from telemarketing is alarming. So a lot of people, without any
Yes.
authority or responsibility, just make claims of whatever they want to claim. They have every right to claim if they can substantiate that. That's the biggest thing. E-commerce is another, you have no vigil on what is happening in the digital space. Somewhere, we need to even take care of digital as a medium where whether there are any kind of digital advertising or digital endorsement or content or anything, which makes false claims.
Okay.
Which needs to be clamped down.
Right, Mr. Bijon Mishra. Let's get in Mr. Bijon Mishra here on this. Mr. Bijon Mishra, to quote a very simple example and how today's bill, if signed into law, is going to help us. There have been cases of people ordering iPhones online, and they end up receiving a soap in the box of an iPhone. So how does this bill help safeguard our rights in such a scenario? Something which has been ordered through the telemarketing platform or through e-commerce, if you're not eventually getting the product that you ordered.
See, the bill is going to ensure that there is going to be good rules framed. After the law comes into force, there will be rules which will come into force, and the authority, you see, the pivotal point is that we're going to have an authority now under this law, which is going to look at all these issues. So earlier, we never had any place to go. The state governments were not at all interested. It was not their priority. None of the state governments were looking at consumer protection as a priority. So now this law will ensure that the state governments have to look at consumer protection as a top priority. They cannot ignore it any longer. So that is going to be the game changer, what I am trying to tell you. You see, the authority, which is the robust body which has been brought about, that is going to address, e-commerce, the direct marketing, telemarketing, all kinds of frame of retail marketing in our country, which has now come because of technology. And earlier it was not there under the Consumer Protection Act 1986 because
That's right.
it did not have those formats before.
Absolutely.
So they used to get away. They couldn't come
right.
under
So
the
this is with respect to the national regulator, which is going to be set up, which is the CCPA, which becomes this one point authority for any consumer across the country. Thanks for explaining that, Mr. Mishra. But stay on with us. We also have a legal voice advocate, Mr. Anand Patwardhan, with us over the phone line. Thanks for being with us, Mr. Patwardhan. In your view, do you think this is going to continue to work in a very robust manner? The very fact that this bill is now going to be introducing a national regulator, and that makes all the difference for a consumer.
Yes, I'm sure it's going to make a big difference. Because for all these days, consumer protection was where the consumer really had to bang his head. The things were not going in the direction it was expected. And from what was happening, it was necessary to have an overhauling of the Consumer Protection Act. Just having a lot of accountability, not the product, but even those who are going to endorse the product. That kind of responsibility and liability is getting fixed on it. Apart from that, I think the new technology that has brought in with different kinds of marketing strategies and stunts that we have today, all those things are going to be captured, giving a wider scope to the consumer protection as such.
Right, Mr. Anand Patwardhan, are we going to be looking at consumer courts being operating differently or taking into account from where exactly the complaint is coming? Would it mean that now, as a compulsion, consumer grievances should be coming through only through the CCPA? It depends only whether or not the CCPA decides to take legal proceedings on any complaint.
No, I don't think that is taking away the right of a consumer to approach the consumer. for now. Commission, the district commission, state commission, and the national commission. And this kind of a right to approach has not been taken away of the consumer.
Yes, please stay on with us. In fact, I'm afraid we'll have to reconnect with you because of that bad audio connect. We're very quickly going to be reconnecting with Mr. Anand Patwardhan on that in just a bit. But let's get in further inputs. Our correspondent Tanima, of course, has been explaining the highlights here of how this is going to be impacting the life of largely us as a consumer and why this is an important day here. Tanima, this is, of course, holding... let's get back to that question, which a lot of people are being keen for it to be answered. As far as celebrities are concerned, this is the kind of penalty that they will have to face as well. We're playing out this long list of celebrity endorsements, which has now become so common here in India, that it becomes equally important for them as well to be very cautious about what they're selling, what they're endorsing next.
That's right, Sahir. In fact, I have a list with me of situations where we have seen the celebrities actually facing some sort of an embarrassment because somewhere or the other their actions, whether under social circumstances, whether they are actually mixing, seen at certain social events, in such cases they have in fact been caught on the wrong side of the argument. For example, in this case, there was an incident in April 2018. Now we know that Sonam Kapoor had in fact been crowned PETA's hottest vegetarian celebrity, and in April 2018 she had in fact shared a picture with Salman Khan when he was lodged in Jodhpur Central Jail after being convicted of the charge of killing two black bucks in Jodhpur. Also, there had in fact been earlier instances. We had recently seen that Priyanka Chopra, the Bollywood star Priyanka Chopra, had in fact also done public service messages where she had spoken about asthma, but then there were certain pictures which had emerged on social media, especially which had raised questions about those claims. So we have in fact often seen that celebrities have been in situations where somewhere or the other there is an image which goes out on social media, put out by a fan or otherwise, where they are questioned on their specific statements, either going out as public service messages or attached to certain advertisements, which in a way kind of portray the fact that they have in fact been hypocritical. So those are also some aspects which will come into question as to whether or not how much how much of legality can actually be seen, or whether these instances can actually be interpreted in the legal framework. That is also something which the CCPA, once it's set up, will have to look into, whether all such instances fall under their radar.
Right. Mr. Bijon Mishra, does this also give certain rights to the concerned celebrity in saying that they've been misled by a brand to be endorsing something, that they were misled in being informed of the real contents or the real qualities of the brand? I mean, I remember a case that comes to mind when Pierce Brosnan was taken up as this huge Hollywood star celebrity for a pan masala brand here in India. And when he realized that the contents of it were not in agreement of his moral standing, he immediately withdrew. He threatened to take the brand to court. Does this also give rights here in India to celebrities to take any brand to court if they have also been misled?
Absolutely right. You are bang on. You see, the celebrities will also now make the advertisers liable, the brand owners liable, in case they are...
We apologize for that, but this is important breaking input here coming in with respect to Cafe Coffee Day. The Cafe Coffee Day board meeting that ends, the management has issued a statement here saying that it is confident the management will ensure continuity. ED is now, this is a reviewing copy of letter that was allegedly signed by their boss, VG Siddhartha, who's been missing since last evening. Our correspondent Neha getting us further details here on the outcome of this very crucial board meeting here. Neha, please go ahead.
In fact, for now it seems like, of course, the board meeting has divulged a couple of details over here. We should, at this point, note that, first of all, the management has expressed shock over this development, and they've said that at this point, at this tough time for the family, that they stand by the family and the loved ones. More importantly, it is also important to remember in that letter that, of course, that has been put out now by Cafe Coffee Day Group. They say that they will ensure continuity of all business operations and that are consistent with the past behavior. And more importantly, they've also reviewed a copy of the letter that was signed by Siddhartha himself, which was addressed to all of the employees of the office. So that is also something that they are looking into at this point. And lastly, of course, they've also said that they would be cooperating with the authorities, of course, and trying to ensure that, none of the stakeholders are really affected by, of course, whatever has happened. We'll have to wait and see what comes out, because now it seems like the company also a little taken aback, a little taken by surprise by this entire turn of events. But we are also now awaiting, of course, a reaction from someone in the family itself. They are probably at this point too shaken up to speak. But we have been seeing reactions coming in from politicos cutting across party lines that have been visiting SM Krishna's residence.
That's right. And of course, the board indicating in which they're saying that they're reviewing a copy of letter which was allegedly signed by VG Siddhartha. So the letter would be further scrutinized on whether or not this was authentic and whether or not this was really signed by him. Neha, thank you for getting us those details. And with that, it is a wrap on the show as well. Thank you for being with us. News and updates that continue right here.